Hello, welcome back to Mysterious Case. As always, a message to you. Always live positively and care for those around you. Thank you for joining us. The videos on our channel aim to promote positivity, and we empathize with the victims' losses and those of their loved ones. The case in this episode took place in Bristol, a vibrant city in southwest United Kingdom, a hub of culture, history, and creativity in the southwest. Situated along the River Avon, Bristol was a significant port during the Middle Ages, renowned for trade and shipbuilding. The city bears the mark of engineer Isambard Kingdom Brunel through the iconic Clifton Suspension Bridge. Bristol is also the birthplace of street art, with figures like Banksy, and trip-hop music from bands like Massive Attack. With a diverse economy spanning technology to aerospace, and two prestigious universities, the University of Bristol and the University of the West of England, the city attracts young talent. Its friendly atmosphere, green lifestyle, and festivals like the Bristol International Balloon Fiesta make Bristol a unique and lively destination. On March 25, 2021, the city was shaken by a horrific murder. Abigail White, a self-proclaimed OnlyFans model known as Fake Barbie Girl, fatally stabbed her boyfriend, Bradley Lewis, in the heart. The case shocked not only due to its brutality, but also because warning signs had long been present, yet unaddressed. The story of Abigail and Bradley is a tragedy of toxic love, untreated mental health issues, and the devastating consequences of downplayed domestic violence. Bradley Lewis, born in 2000, was a beloved 22-year-old Bristol native. Raised in a warm family, he loved football and worked as a floor layer. His cheerful, sociable nature earned him many friends and widespread respect. In contrast, Abigail White, a year older than Bradley, had a tumultuous childhood. She witnessed domestic violence, suffered abuse from her stepfather, and was eventually raised by her grandparents. These early traumas led to negative emotional issues, later diagnosed as borderline personality disorder, BPD. The relationship between Abigail and Bradley began in their teens. They met when Bradley was 14, and 2 years later, they started dating. The couple had 3 children together, but their relationship quickly turned toxic. Abigail's psychological instability led to controlling and abusive behavior toward Bradley, while he felt trapped by his responsibility for their children. Escalating arguments, threats, and violent acts culminated in Bradley's tragic death. This case is not just a story of a crime, but a warning about recognizing and intervening in dangerous relationships in time. And here is Abigail White, born into a turbulent family in Bristol, United Kingdom, enduring a harsh childhood that shaped her unstable personality later in life. At just 2 years old, Abigail witnessed her father abusing her mother. By age 4, her parents divorced, and a new stepfather entered her life, continuing the cycle of violence, this time directed at Abigail herself. These traumas forced her to leave her family and be raised by her grandparents in a safer environment. However, her painful past left a deep mark, making it difficult for Abigail to manage her emotions and behavior. At school, Abigail was frequently disciplined for inappropriate behavior, leading to multiple expulsions. Her psychological issues became so severe that at just 13, she was prescribed antidepressants. However, Abigail did not receive adequate psychological support to overcome her past traumas. As an adult, instead of pursuing a stable career, she chose to become a content creator on OnlyFans, a platform known for adult content. Branding herself as Mitzi Lewis and Fake Barbie Girl, Abigail quickly gained attention with provocative images, earning over £50,000, approximately $60,000 in her first year. Her initial success on OnlyFans provided significant income, but her popularity was short-lived. The increasingly competitive market led to a sharp decline in followers, reducing her annual earnings to around £12,000. This drop left Abigail in financial instability, forcing her to rely on the income of Bradley Lewis, her boyfriend, and the father of 3 of her 4 children. This dependency, combined with her controlling nature and untreated psychological issues, intensified the strain in their relationship. The journey from a girl scarred by a traumatic childhood to a struggling OnlyFans model marked the first steps toward Abigail's tragic path, where she gradually lost control and caused irreparable consequences. The relationship between Abigail White and Bradley Lewis is a textbook example of toxicity, where love was overshadowed by control, violence, and instability. Beginning when both were teenagers, their relationship quickly shifted from romantic to a relentless cycle of conflict. Bradley, a gentle and devoted young man, seemed trapped in Abigail's whirlwind, a woman with an impulsive and violent streak driven by unresolved psychological issues. Abigail frequently controlled Bradley, not only in their daily lives, but also through psychological manipulation. She distrusted him, especially when he was away, and often pressured him to spend the night with her, even after he had moved back to his mother's home at the request of social services. Threatening messages from Abigail to Bradley revealed the severity of her control. For instance, in February 2021, she texted, "I swear to God, I'll stab you." And just weeks before the crime, she threatened to stab you in the neck. These threats were not mere words. They were backed by actions, such as when she stabbed Bradley in the arm just a week before his death. Their relationship was further complicated by personal issues. Abigail admitted to multiple affairs, while she accused Bradley of infidelity as well. However, no concrete evidence supported her accusations against Bradley, whereas her violent behavior was well documented. She frequently used social media to publicly criticize and belittle Bradley, even posting videos with notification sounds from the dating app Tinder to provoke him. These actions not only hurt Bradley, but also exposed Abigail's arrogance and irresponsibility. Despite warnings from Bradley's friends and family about Abigail's dangerous nature, he stayed because of his responsibility for their 3 shared children. This loyalty, combined with fear that Abigail might harm herself, kept him in a relationship that ultimately led to tragedy. This toxic relationship laid the groundwork for the heartbreaking events that followed, highlighting the consequences of failing to escape a violent environment. Before the murder on March 25, 2021, there were numerous clear warning signs of the dangerous relationship between Abigail White and Bradley Lewis. These signals came from violent behavior, overt threats, and ineffective interventions by those around them. However, the failure to act in time led to irreversible consequences, making Bradley's death a preventable tragedy. One of the most alarming signs was Abigail's escalating violence. On March 19, 2021, just a week before the murder, Abigail stabbed Bradley in the arm during an argument. The injury was severe enough to require hospitalization, but due to his gentle nature and reluctance to get Abigail in trouble, Bradley lied to doctors, claiming it was a work accident. This cover-up revealed both his fear and his sense of being trapped in the relationship, particularly due to his responsibility for their children. Abigail's threats were another glaring red flag. In a voice message to a friend, she openly admitted her violent potential. "I genuinely believe I could kill him, and I'd end up in prison." She also sent hundreds of threatening messages to Bradley, including threats to kill his mother in front of him. Just 6 days before the murder, Abigail searched Google for topics related to stabbing, indicating that violent intent was forming in her mind. Social services also recognized the danger in their relationship and mandated that Abigail not live with Bradley. However, this rule was frequently ignored, as Abigail continually manipulated Bradley into returning to her. Bradley's friends and family, especially his mother Rachel, repeatedly warned him about Abigail's crazy behavior, but he felt unable to leave, fearing she might harm herself. These signs, from violent acts and threats to the lack of action from authorities, were missed opportunities to prevent the tragedy. They demonstrate that the murder was not a sudden event, but the culmination of a long forewarned chain of events. March 25, 2021, marked a fateful evening in the story of Abigail White and Bradley Lewis. The events that unfolded in a few short hours led to Bradley's tragic death, exposing the severity of their toxic relationship. That night, the atmosphere in the couple's Bristol home was thick with tension, and Abigail's impulsive actions pushed everything to an irreversible point. That afternoon, Bradley, recognizing the danger of their relationship, decided to end things with Abigail. He met her at a public park to make his intentions clear. Abigail, already unstable, became enraged by his decision. After the meeting, they joined friends at the Horseshoe pub. There, Abigail grew increasingly aggressive after using cocaine and drinking alcohol. She clashed with those around her, even slapping a man, which led to her being struck back and falling to the ground. Bradley, despite trying to de-escalate, was publicly humiliated when Abigail snatched his drink and threw it in his face. Around 7:50 p.m., Abigail demanded to go home, and a friend named Alfie offered to drive them. The couple argued incessantly during the ride. Upon arriving, Bradley said something haunting to Alfie. "I'm dead when I go in there." Sensing unease, Alfie gave Bradley his phone number, but just 20 minutes later, the tragedy unfolded. At 8:10 p.m., Abigail's piercing scream rang out. A neighbor, Mrs. Cundy, rushed over and found Bradley lying on the kitchen floor, blood pooling across the hallway and living room. A blood-stained knife was found on the fireplace. Abigail claimed Bradley stabbed himself during an argument, but police immediately suspected otherwise. Bradley was rushed to the hospital, but due to massive blood loss, he died at 1:30 a.m. on March 26th. The autopsy revealed a single stab wound to the chest, piercing between his ribs and directly into his heart. Bradley's death was not only a profound loss for his family, but also a stark testament to the consequences of failing to intervene in a violent relationship. That night, Abigail turned her threats into reality, leaving behind irreparable pain. Following Bradley Lewis's death in the early hours of March 26, 2021, Bristol police swiftly launched an investigation to determine the cause and culprit. The crime scene was rife with disturbing evidence. Blood splattered across the hallway, living room, and items like a t-shirt and mop. The blood-stained knife on the fireplace became a critical piece of evidence. Abigail White, present at the scene, immediately became the prime suspect, but her initial account was inconsistent and unconvincing. Abigail told police that Bradley stabbed himself during an argument. According to her, Bradley intended to harm himself, and she tried to wrest the knife from him to throw it away. As she ran through the hallway, she claimed Bradley chased her, grabbed her wrist, and drove the knife into his own chest. However, this story clashed with physical evidence. The single, deep, and precise stab wound to Bradley's chest indicated significant force, unlikely in a self-inflicted scenario as Abigail described. Moreover, Bradley's gentle and responsible nature made the idea of suicide even less plausible. During the investigation, police uncovered a series of threatening messages Abigail sent to Bradley over months. Texts like, "I'll stab you," and "I'll kill your mum in front of you," revealed not only her violent intentions, but also her tendency to act on negative emotions. Notably, Abigail's Google searches about stabbing just days before the crime further strengthened suspicions of premeditation. Her behavior at the Horseshoe pub that evening, using cocaine, drinking, and picking fights, was corroborated by witnesses, painting a picture of someone spiraling out of control. Although allowed to accompany Bradley to the hospital, Abigail was closely monitored by police. During questioning, she opted for silence, providing only a pre-prepared statement through her lawyer. However, her story quickly unraveled under the weight of irrefutable evidence. The investigation not only clarified the truth behind Bradley's death, but also exposed the dangerous extent of Abigail's rage and uncontrolled psychological issues. A critical factor in Abigail White's case was her unstable mental state, thoroughly evaluated by experts during the investigation and trial. These psychological issues partly explained her violent behavior and shed light on why she couldn't control her emotions, leading to Bradley Lewis's death. However, the evaluations also confirmed she was fully aware of her actions, playing a pivotal role in the court's verdict. Dr. Sonia Kreese, a clinical psychologist, concluded that Abigail's ability to control anger was lower than 99% of the population. She had poor emotional coping strategies, causing the rational part of her brain to shut down during rage. This was supported by Dr. Bradley Hiller, a forensic psychiatrist, who diagnosed Abigail with borderline personality disorder, BPD. Individuals with BPD often experience intense emotional swings, are easily triggered by minor events, and tend to act impulsively. Hiller noted that Abigail's behavior on the night of the crime aligned with BPD traits, including emotional instability and manipulative tendencies. Dr. Sanford, another psychiatrist, added that Abigail faced multiple stressors before the crime, including an abortion, Bradley's admission of infidelity, and his declaration of wanting to end the relationship. These factors exacerbated her mental state, making it harder to control her anger. However, Sanford emphasized that Abigail showed no signs of hallucinations, delusions, or severe psychotic symptoms. She had never been admitted to a psychiatric hospital and was fully aware of her actions when she stabbed Bradley. These evaluations were crucial during the trial. While Abigail's mental condition was considered, the prosecution argued she had intent to kill, evidenced by her threatening messages and prior violent acts. Abigail tried to shift blame to Bradley, claiming he was also violent and manipulative, but no credible evidence supported this. Experts agreed that despite her BPD, Abigail was legally responsible for her actions. These psychological analyses not only helped the court understand her motives, but also underscored the importance of timely mental health treatment to prevent similar tragedies. The trial of Abigail White began after she was charged with murder in the death of Bradley Lewis. With irrefutable evidence, from threatening messages to prior violent acts, Abigail faced immense pressure to prove her innocence. However, her constantly shifting story and inconsistent testimony eroded the jury's trust. The trial not only uncovered the truth, but also exposed Abigail's dangerous nature. Initially, Abigail denied the murder charge and pleaded guilty to manslaughter, arguing she had no intent to kill Bradley. She stuck to her claim that Bradley stabbed himself, but 2 months later, she was forced to accept a manslaughter plea as the evidence against her was overwhelming. The prosecution rejected this, emphasizing that her threatening messages, prior stabbing of Bradley's arm, and Google searches about stabbing indicated intent to kill. The fatal stab to Bradley's heart, with its depth and precision, was inconsistent with an accidental or defensive act. Throughout the trial, Abigail tried to blame Bradley, portraying him as manipulative and violent. She claimed she acted out of fear and concern for her and her family's future. However, these claims lacked supporting evidence, and the jury found her dishonest. Abigail admitted she initially lied to avoid consequences, further weakening her case. After 12 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously found her guilty of murder. Under UK law, Abigail was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years before being eligible for parole, meaning the earliest possible release in October 2039. However, the judge noted she might serve longer due to the crime's severity. The judge highlighted that Abigail demanded constant attention from Bradley, became aggressive when unmet, and had clear intent to kill. This verdict was not only punishment for Abigail, but also a warning about the consequences of unchecked domestic violence, leaving a painful lesson for those involved. Bradley Lewis's death was not only a personal tragedy, but also left profound grief for his family, friends, and the Bristol community. For those who loved him, his loss was irreparable, serving as a painful reminder of the consequences of failing to intervene in a violent relationship. The case also had lasting impacts, particularly for Bradley and Abigail's 3 children. Bradley's family, especially his parents, Steve and Rachel, were devastated by his death. Rachel shared that a part of her world collapsed, and the pain of losing Bradley would haunt her forever. Steve described losing his son as the hardest thing he'd ever faced, emphasizing the emptiness the family now endured. Bradley was a devoted son and loving father, and his absence left an unfillable void. The family also grappled with the reality that Bradley's 3 children not only lost their father, but must grow up with the stigma that their mother caused his death. The Bristol community was equally shocked. Bradley was well-loved, known for his sociable nature and ties to local football. Hundreds attended his funeral on May 20, 2021, at Westerly Crematorium, reflecting the affection for him. A memorial football match, organized by the Bristol Rovers Supporters Club where Bradley once played, drew a large crowd. The event raised over £7,000, with most funds covering funeral costs and the remainder supporting the mental health charity Mind, underscoring the importance of psychological care. Bradley and Abigail's 3 children face a challenging future. They not only lost their father but must live with the memory of their mother in prison, possibly without seeing her for years. The case sparked community discussions about domestic violence and the need for psychological support for individuals like Abigail. Its impact extends beyond personal grief, serving as a call to action to prevent similar tragedies in the future. The case of Abigail White and Bradley Lewis is not only a heartbreaking story, but also a stark warning about the dangers of domestic violence, untreated mental health issues, and the failure to intervene in time. From ignored warning signs to irreversible consequences, the case offers valuable lessons for society and raises questions about how we can prevent similar tragedies in the future. One key lesson is the critical importance of recognizing and acting on signs of a toxic relationship. Abigail had a history of violence, from stabbing Bradley in the arm to sending death threats via text. Social services, friends, and family all recognized the danger, yet no measures were strong enough to separate Bradley from Abigail. This underscores the need for closer coordination between authorities and communities to protect those trapped in abusive relationships, especially when children are involved. The case also highlights the urgent need for mental health care. Abigail suffered from borderline personality disorder, BPD, but received inadequate treatment to manage her emotions and behavior. Had she received proper psychological support early on, the tragedy might have been avoided. This calls for greater investment in mental health services, particularly for those with childhood trauma, to prevent violent behavior from escalating into crime. Bradley Lewis's legacy is reflected in the love he showed his family and community. The memorial football match and funds raised for the mental health charity Mine demonstrate how deeply he was cherished. However, this legacy also serves as a sobering reminder. We must pay attention to loved ones, listen when they need help, and not dismiss danger signs. For Bradley's 3 children, their future depends on the support of family and society to overcome the pain of losing their father in their mother's absence. Ultimately, the Abigail White case reminds us that domestic violence is not just a personal issue, but a collective responsibility. By raising awareness, improving support systems, and acting promptly, we can help prevent similar tragedies, offering hope for a safer future for all. Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's build a positive community together. Don't forget to support the channel by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications for new videos. Thank you, and see you next time.